The University of Oxford in the United Kingdom has paused its AstraZeneca vaccine trial on children. This is over blood clotting concerns. The Oxford-led paediatric study began in mid-February and is aimed at testing the COVID vaccine in more than 200 children aged between 6 to 17. The trial is expected to be suspended until more information is provided about blood clotting issues. But the UK Prime Minister says the rollout should continue for the general population.
The best thing people should do is look at what the MHRA say, our independent regulator. That's why we have them. That's why they're independent. And their advice to people is to keep going out there, get your jab, get your second jab.
Dr. Alejandro Cravioto is the chairman of WHO's Strategic Advisory Group of experts on immunisation. He joins me live now. Thanks so much for your time. Is that the right course of action that we just heard from Boris Johnson? Continue with the AstraZeneca rollout?
Yes, it is. I don't think that there is any reason for now to stop the rollout of the vaccine. We have this signal that we've been studying. Everybody, the company, the EMA, the European Medicines Agency, the MHRA, the one in the UK, and certainly WHO are all on top of these, and we have been having meetings almost every other day to see how this develops. The decision to stop the trial in the children is justified, but not to stop the rollout of the vaccine for those, especially those in the elderly population that need the most the shots.
How worried are you, Doctor, about the hoarding of vaccines? We have a problem here in Australia with the EU not delivering on 3 million AstraZeneca shots.
I think that everybody is having a problem with that. The producers are having a huge pressure by their own populations to have as much vaccine stay in their countries as possible. The United States has this policy of not sharing their vaccines with anyone in the world. And so in a sense, we are all subject to whatever is being trickled out of the companies once they satisfy these national issues. I think that on the one side is justified because everybody wants to be vaccinated. On the other hand, without some kind of equity feeling and a feeling of sharing of the vaccines, we will not get through. The International Chamber of Commerce has clearly shown that the full economic recovery for the world won't happen until everyone has access to a vaccine.
So in many ways, the WHO does endorse the European Commission's stance here.
Yes, I would guess that in a sense, there is a justification, if you want to call it that, because they also want to immunize their populations. But the problem is that the companies have made contracts, especially with the COVAX facility. That means the way that we have been supplying or trying to supply the poorest countries in the world with at least a 20% amount of vaccines for their populations, and without the supply coming from these factories around the world, that will be impossible. And so in a sense, some countries are going to have high rates of vaccination while others cannot really get the first vaccines to start the process.
The problem here is, isn't it, Doctor, that some third world nations are missing out. Australia requested 1 million of these vaccines to be sent urgently to PNG because it is a crisis there. But that request hasn't even been responded to.
No, and today the foreign minister of Mexico said he's making a visit to China and Russia because Mexico has also bought vaccines from them and they have not been delivered so far. So he wants to know what's happening with that. So it's not a problem for Australia. I think everybody in the world is in the same boat. And I do think that the high-income countries that are the producers or the ones that are hoarding the vaccine, because some of them have made commitments far, far in advance of the size of their populations, should really start looking a bit on the other side of this issue and try to have a much more international outlook, which is what the Dr. Tedros, the Director General of the World Health Organization, has asked for also.
Doctor, just one final question. When we look around the world at these new variants, particularly in Brazil, are you concerned that the immunisation program and the vaccines we have at the moment just simply won't be enough?
Well, it's not the problem that they won't be enough. The problem is that we won't have them fast enough to be able to control the spread of these, at least three of these variants, the one from the UK, the one from South Africa, the one from Brazil, which are the ones we call variants of concern. And I think the more we tend to take to vaccinate our populations, or the more we take from one dose to the second dose, we have the possibility of these variants taking over. And we have seen that they are far more dangerous than the original virus in the sense of transmission, and in two of those cases in the sense of causing a more severe disease. So we are fighting against time, we're fighting against the virus, and I think we need a much more concerted international perspective on how to deal with the problem, which so far, unfortunately, hasn't had the leadership that it should have had for all of us to control the pandemic together.
Is it too parochial, each country's strategy here? I mean, we see from Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil that he's let COVID-19 run rampant, and now it seems it's putting the rest of the world at risk in many ways.
Well, that's the problem with these decisions that are based, although they seem to be local, they are affecting everyone because of international travel, that we won't be able to stop international commerce and everything else that happens in all our countries to be able to survive economically. So in a sense, if we really want to tackle the problem, there has to be a more concerted effort. And I think the place to have that type of discussion would be the United Nations.
Dr. Alejandro Cravioto, as always, we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me.